So welcome everybody. Our talk tonight is 5 unconscious programs that keep people sick. I'm Michael Dalton. I've been doing bioenergy healing for over 30 years. And one of the most common things is like, why do people get sick, right? That's always a good question. Why do people get sick? And I feel like, especially over the last few months in the webinars, I really did a good job of answering that, why people get sick, and the relation with stress, the relation with the nervous system. And one of the simplest things I often say in bioenergy, if we're having to do things that we really don't want to do, it takes us out of our center. And over time, that the stress of that can lead to illness and sickness. And I've always seen that as one of the major causes of, like, first of all, why people get sick. But when people are living out of alignment, when they're doing things that they really don't want to be doing, that's often that lead into why people get sick. But once you then can see, okay, well, why do people get sick? The next kind of thing that comes up is, well, how do we get better? And then, one of the things that I found, like through my bioenergy practice for over 30 years, that it's been really a magical experience to work with people and help them turn their health around. And it doesn't matter how long people have been sick, how serious their illness has been. I honestly think there's no incurable conditions, only incurable people. Everybody has the capacity to be fully healthy and well. Like, people are fucking amazing what people are capable of with their healing, with the body's capacity to regenerate, renew itself, replenish itself. There's really no limits on us other than the limits that we place on ourselves through conditioning and programming and cultural conditioning. But sorry, just adding some people in here. But our actual capacity for healing is unlimited and phenomenal. And so healing is really helping. I've always tried to convey this concept with healing, that healing is really helping people get out of their own way, right? Like, that's really what healing is. It's like clearing the blockages out of the way so that their body starts to heal itself. So healing is getting people out of the way so that their body heals itself. But then it comes up with, like, so you can help people get better and you can help people heal. But there's some things that you come across, like after 30 years of practice, there's some similarities that you find as into why people weren't healing, or what has been preventing people from healing. And some of these, we'll just call them programs, but some of these programs, people don't even know that they have them. And that's always one of the lessons I always share in bioenergy, is that, people don't know what they don't know, right? Like, we're as much as we're information junkies and we know so much, and people know so much, right? Like, now more than ever before, people are so full of information. We're information junkies. We know something about everything. But what we don't know is, we don't know what it is that we don't know. And I always think that's a really interesting one, right? And when it comes to our own healing, there might be things that we don't know. When it comes to why the body's not healing, there might be, we call it the blind spot. So people have a blind spot. It's very hard for people to see their own stuff. It's like, you might notice other people will say something to you and you get defensive. But when you're getting defensive, that's a good sign that they're speaking the truth, right? Because it's touching upon somewhere sensitive inside of you. If there was no truth in it, you would just listen to it, dismiss it, let it go. But when someone says something to you and it triggers a little something, there's usually a sign there that there's some healing required in that area, or there's an opportunity to access something there that is unresolved. So that's kind of what I wanted to touch upon tonight, with some of these, whether we can call them conscious or unconscious. Sometimes people are aware of them. Most of the time people are unaware of them. And some of these things that have kept people sick. And then the job of the healer is to help them unravel these things and then come into this alignment. I love using my analogy of the pendulum, a little bioenergy pendulum here. But the analogy of the pendulum is when we're pulling or pushing in our life, whether we're pulling or pushing, the pendulum swings, right? And we're not so much in our center. And healing is really about helping people find their center. And the most beautiful thing about it is that your center is always there. We just have to get out of the way. We got to stop pulling and pushing ourselves off our center. And so then when it comes to these unconscious blocks, well, you can imagine then that there might be something pulling us off our center that's stopping us from healing. So in essence, if something is making us sick, so for instance, if you're working at a job that you really don't want to do, potentially that could be making you sick. But, if there's something preventing you from getting better, then equally that can be another thing that's pulling you out of alignment. So my kind of goal tonight was just to kind of break it down a little bit, unravel it a little bit, and to give some insight into some of these things. And if you have them or you don't have them, perhaps becoming aware of them. I really believe, like, as we get more educated on our health and our well-being and our energy field, as we get more educated and we understand what gets us sick, what keeps us healthy, then we can actually start to manifest better health for ourselves and manage our health in much better ways. Does that make sense? Right? So, it's like, it's not that people don't have lots of knowledge and information. It's just sometimes we got the wrong knowledge and the wrong information. And sometimes things are really simple, and we need to come back to those simple truths in order to restore health and well-being in the body. And so let's start with the first one. So the first one is kind of, I would say, the more obvious out of them all. I would say the first one that stops people getting better is the very notorious fear of change. And it's really like this fear of change. So when you have someone who comes and they've been sick for 10 years or 20 years, and in the last 10 years, they've had back pain and they haven't been working and they've been at home, one of the biggest things that's going to transform is that when they get rid of their back pain and they get better, their life is going to be completely different. If they're not working, they're going to have to start working again, right? Like if you're living a lifestyle where you can't work because of back pain, and then your back pain is gone, your life changes. And so for some people, the fear of that change is so much more than the excitement or the joy of getting better. Now, let me put it another way. If you had a back pain for 6 months, the excitement of getting better is outweighs the keeping the back pain, right? If you have a back pain for a month, the excitement of getting better far, far outweighs keeping the back pain. But after you've had a back pain for 2 or 3 years, there's less excitement about getting better, and there's more, I'm not going to call it excitement for being sick, but comfort zone. There's that comfort zone about knowing what your problem is, knowing what it's like, going for your chiropractor visit or your doctor's visit, and, you're kind of maintaining that kind of same lifestyle. And so this is like one of the things that just keeps people in the same place over and over is just repeating this same pattern, right? The same pattern of, okay, well, I want to get rid of my back pain, but there's a fear of change. And that fear of change is really significant and huge. And you'd be amazed at how much that will stop people from getting better. And so what I like with the healing process is understanding like where like that fear comes, where fear is held in the body. And if we could bring it, we're doing a class this morning and we're talking about fear in the body, like literally talking about this subject just this morning on our practitioner course. And so any of the practitioners will know exactly where fear is held in the body. There's a very specific energy point in the body that blocks the flow and movement of energy. And of course, it's the root chakra. And so as long as the root chakra is blocked and the energy is not flowing freely through the root chakra, the fear is always going to be stronger than the transformation of getting better. And it's like a weighing scales. Is if you're not able to release the fear of like what's going to happen, the fear of becoming that new person, the fear of, you know, getting a job, the fear of going for a job interview. If you hadn't had to go for a job interview in 10 years, that could be a big fear. If you've been sick and you haven't had to be in a relationship, you know, as exciting as being in a relationship can be, there can also be a fear around that. If you haven't had to live any kind of social life because of your headaches and migraines, and suddenly your headaches and migraines are disappearing and you're getting better, it might seem an easier choice to get your headaches and migraines back than to actually now go and socialize. And although that sounds crazy, if someone has been without socializing for 10 years because of their migraines, it's a lot easier to keep the migraines than it is to get better and have to go socialize. It might be easier to keep the migraines and have to go for a job interview, right? Does that make sense to anybody? Right? So we have fear of change is really significant. So one of the ways that we address it in healing is identifying if that's one of the patterns that's taken place. You identify that by whether the energy is flowing or blocked in the root chakra. And if it's blocked, then the energy needs to get flowing in that area. A second energy point that affects is the sacral chakra, because that's the flow and movement and change center. So, you know, in cases where there's a fear of change, it's generally there's going to be two blockages, one in the root and one in the sacral. And both of those energy points will need to be cleared, or it's just the person's just going to stay stuck. The fear of change will outweigh them getting better. But when that fear lets go, then the person will just gradually transition from their back pain or migraine to being healthy. They transition from not working to gradually, you know, working again. They transition from not wanting to socialize and being out and around people to suddenly feeling excited about like making new connections and finding change and growth in their life. So as energy starts to flow and move through their energy system and through their body, so too does feelings and emotion. Feelings and emotion follow the change of energy. And all that has to happen is when the person starts to feel that new feeling of like not just physically being healthy, but they're able to now see you're not operating from the same place. Because when you have like back pain and you're trying to live a different life, you're operating from that place of back pain. But now imagine if that back pain is completely gone. Now you're emotionally able to deal with things so much easier, right? Because if the back pain's gone, now you have the capacity to go and do the interviews. Now you have the capacity to go out and socialize, because you're not in that same like drained energy of having pain and keeping that pain in the body and trying to process that pain. And then everything starts to work better, right? Like if pain goes out of your body, two things happen very quickly when pain leaves your body. One, your energy levels go up, because we lose energy to pain and we lose energy to keep pain suppressed in the body. So one of the things that clients always report when pain leaves their body is that they always say, I don't know what you've done, but I have so much more energy, which is really wonderful, because that you need that new energy to face the changes that being healthy is going to bring, right? You're going to have to go out and do more stuff. You're going to have to start living your life versus putting it on hold. You know, people say, oh yeah, I'd love to go to Costa Rica, but I'll wait till I get better. Oh, I'd love to move house, but I can't do it right now. I'll have to wait till I get better. You know, oh, get married. Yeah, I'd love to get married, but I have to wait till I get all of these things. Suddenly they're here today when you don't have any more excuses, right? So you can understand, like, you get it, right? You can understand people have fear of change, but generally what happens is people don't know that they have. And I know when I share it with you, it sounds so obvious. And I know that you know that you know, but generally people don't know what they don't know. And they generally don't know that their fear of change, they're not able to see it. You can see it for other people, but you're unable to see it for yourself. So it's definitely a good one to kind of just to process for a moment and think about. And you might find that maybe, like, if you're already healthy, maybe it's other things in your life, like, you know, there's fear of change and other things in your life that keeps you doing the same things. And then as you start to like open your mind up to that, then you start to notice things that you didn't notice before, right? Yeah. So that's the, I would say that's the comfort zone one. That's the kind of like the obvious one, and you would just expect that everybody knows it, but really the clients that come in that are stuck, they don't get it. They don't know it, you know. They know it about everyone else, but they don't know it about themselves, right? The second one that comes up, and this one kind of surprised me. Like I learned this one in the first year I was doing bioenergy. So this is like 30 years ago. And it started with, I often tell the story of this client, but it started with this one person that I worked with. And he was working in a flour mill, and he got they used chlorine to bleach the flour. And when they're changing they're these huge bottles of gas, and they have to change the fitting on them. It didn't close properly, and the chlorine came out into the room, and he got a whiff of chlorine. And from that, there is claims that you can get asthma from a whiff of chlorine. So it's like chemical chlorine used for bleaching flour, blah, blah, blah. So that's the kind of background story. And then I was treating this guy, and as I'm treating him, he's like making a remarkable recovery. His asthma is getting, like, he's doing so good. He's not using his inhalers. Everything seems like he's really getting better. And then he says to me, is it okay if I stop my treatment for like 2 months? And I mean, the treatment is only like a month long. So it's like, you know, it's like 1 to 2 months long is the treatment. So it's like he wanted me to stop the treatment for 2 months. And I said, like, well, do you mind if I ask you why you want to stop the treatment? Because it's really working. Like, you can really see how much you're improving. And he didn't want to tell me. He didn't want to tell me why he wanted to stop the treatment. And I was really suspicious then. I was like, what's going on? Like, why don't you want to tell me? And then he said, well, his lawyer told him to stop having treatment, that he needed to keep his condition till after the court case, you know, because he was, now this is a long time ago, but he was due to make, like, this was like 40,000 Irish pounds. This would be the equivalent of maybe $80,000 right now. Like, it was a large chunk of money. And if you can imagine, just imagine the scenario. This man has a claim in for this asthmatic injury he's received, and he's due to get $80,000. That's the amount that they're claiming for. Everything is moving towards that. Suddenly he goes for energy healing, and his asthma starts getting better. His asthma starts disappearing. And then the lawyer says to him, when he says, the lawyer is checking in with him, and he's like, oh yeah, my asthma is going. The lawyer's like, stop, wait till after the treatment, wait till after the court case. Don't have any more treatment before the court case, because if your asthma goes, you're not going to get any money. Well, of course, I'm not saying he had planned to buy a swimming pool or anything. I mean, this is Ireland. So, but maybe like a new garden shed and you know, a new car or something, and a kitchen upgraded, and, you know, you can imagine that money's already spent. And so when he said to me, like, he didn't want to have any more treatment until after the court case, I remember being really confused. I mean, it's a long time, and I still remember that, because it was the first time I realized, that sometimes people have an investment in staying sick. I didn't realize that the investment, and we'll call this a financial reward, that he had an $80,000, like, you know, it was 40,000 Irish pounds. It was maybe the equivalent of $80,000 now, like in terms of Canadian dollars. It's a huge amount of money to receive, right? And so there was a financial reward for being sick. I've come over the years, like now, living in Canada and working with people, and I treat a lot of people with back pain. And I always now, whenever people have been in a car crash, my kind of like little light bulb goes on. Because what I've learned now is that if someone has been in a car crash, it could be 2 to 3 years that they have a claim in to get some sort of repercussion for their injury, right? 2 to 3 years. Now, what does that mean? Well, in my mind as the healer, that says to me that they have for 2 to 3 years, they have a reason not to get better. So now I'm treating someone for their back pain, and they have a reason not to get better. Now, it goes a little bit crazier than that. If you get a lump sum of money, so say you're in a car crash, you injure your back, you're supposed to be not to be able to work, and then you get a lump sum of money. Well, what message are you giving your subconscious mind? Well, now the message you're giving is to stay sick. Because if you actually get better and you already spent the money, there's a conflict inside yourself. Now, maybe some people say, well, I wouldn't have a conflict in that. But most people, like, regardless of, there's always corrupt people out there and people that manipulate, but most people are pretty genuine. And if you're spending money for an injury that you have in the future, you'll unconsciously will balance that out by staying sick. You have to. The universe always finds a way. We always find a way to balance ourselves out. The pendulum, think of the pendulum, right? Like, it always comes back to center, you know? So if we receive money for being sick, then we're gonna stay sick to match that energy. So I often say, when people have had like car crashes or injuries, or they have claims in for an injury, and this is just my thought, but from 30 years of healing, maybe it helps you if you're treating anybody with back pain, if you have back pain, if you're a practitioner and you're ever going to treat someone with back pain. I think it's a really good thing to know. But what I say to people, look, if someone crashed into you and you injured your back, you have every right to make a claim. Absolutely, right? Claim for your time off work, claim for your injury, claim for the loss of income, but don't claim for future outcome. And that's the mistake that people make. Because when you're claiming to be sick in the future, to have problems in the future, now imagine, even like, it's like a charade, right? Like, if someone's going to a court case, they're going to put a neck brace and everything on, you know, they're limping into court with crutches, you know. It's like, I mean, I'm making fun of it, but when you think about it, like, that's, people want to give the best, worst impression that they can, that they're going to stay sick into the future. Now, once you understand that you've this powerful mind and body, and your mind and body that has the ability to heal itself, renew itself, replenish itself, if you're telling yourself, hey, I'm going to be sick into the future, and I need to get paid for my not getting better in the future, the strength of which you're telling yourself that is your body's listening. Your body is always listening to you. And then after you get your lump sum of money, you think you can kind of take that program out of the body. Well, that's gone into your subconscious mind. It's a lot harder to get it out than to put it in, you know. So one of the things I always suggest is like, yeah, claim for your time off work, claim, but like see yourself getting better, see yourself getting healthy. Don't claim for future health, because you're literally setting yourself up to stay sick. And that's how powerful you are. You will keep yourself sick in the future as a way of balancing out that energy. So anyway, good thing to know, right? So that's, we call that financial reward. And that links back into the same chakra, root chakra, right? Root is security, family, finances. So there's a sense of security. So we get very like fearful around finances. And so sometimes people are like, well, I really need the finances. What if I always have a bad back for the rest of my life and I'm not able to work again and pick up the kids? And, you know, and then you start feeding into those fears. And that, of course, can really keep people from returning back to full health and well-being. In terms of being a practitioner, you know, one of the areas we're just talking about it again in our class this morning is you're always going to be working on the root chakra, because the root chakra, we start to feel safer, we start to feel grounded, we start to let go of the fear, and then we come back to our center. When we come back to our center, our energy starts to open, expand, we begin to heal. So, you know, one of the important things about healing is that we have to feel trust. We have to feel safe to be here, which is root chakra, and then all the energy opens up and we start to regenerate, we start to heal, we start to renew. Beautiful. Okay, so number 3 on our list is emotional reward. So just like there was, number 1 was fear of change, number 2 was financial reward, number 3, emotional reward. So what is meant by emotional reward? Well, I first saw this again years ago in my clinics when I would see people come in, and I remember this lady coming in, and she I was treating her for, I think it was like arthritis, and I was treating her and she was really making great progress. She was really improving. She was getting better. She was doing so well. And, but something didn't feel right. I had this weird feeling. It sounds weird, but as I've been working on the woman, I had a weird feeling that she didn't want to get better, which was really interesting because she was really improving at the same time that I had a feeling that she didn't want to get better. She was really improving. And so I just like as you would, I just asked her like, how is everything? She's like, everything's okay. And I said, you know, like you seem to be like really improving with the treatment. And I think we're halfway through the treatment. So we only do 5 sessions of bioenergy. So halfway is just like 2 sessions. So she's like making really good progress in just 2 sessions. And I say to her, you know, it looks like you're making really good progress. And she says, no, I don't want to get better. And I was shocked. I was like, what? I knew that there was something. I knew something was weird. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to get better? I'm like, why are you here? Like, why are you here in a clinic having treatment if you don't want to get better? And she said, I'm here for my daughters. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you're here for your daughters? And she's like, well, since I've been sick, they come and visit me all the time. They take great care of me. They brought me here. They're bringing me out to lunch afterwards. Like, you know, when I was healthy, I never saw them. Folks, this is real life shit. This is 30 years of being a healer. I mean, I like to retell this story, but this is just one out of the same kind of patterns over and over and over. I like to share sometimes this one because it was the first time I realized that people have emotional reasons for staying sick. You know, just as they have financial reasons, sometimes people have emotional reasons to be sick. And sometimes that emotional reward is coming from family and friends, you know. And I shared with this woman, well, look, what if you were able to get better and like be around your daughters and like be healthy with them. Maybe they'd like to visit you more if you're healthy. Maybe, you know, if you communicate this with them, you know, maybe they would enjoy their visits with you when you're healthy and you can go and do stuff together. Maybe you don't need to be sick in order to have the visits. And, you know, the program is, well, they never came and visited me when I was healthy. Yeah, but I mean, we can update that program. You know what I mean? You can communicate now to your daughters that you want to see more of them in your life. And I think that they would be really happy to spend more time with you being healthy than you being sick, you know. And it's kind of like a win-win for everybody, right? She gets better, the daughters visit her more, you know. I helped this woman turn her health around, that like in some way I just caught it before she sabotaged it. And really, that's when we talk about the unconscious programs that keep people sick. People sabotage themselves. Like it's not that people can't get better. Here's the thing. It's not that people can't get better. It's that whether it's fear of change, financial reward, emotional reward, or the other two others that we go into, it's not that people can't get better, but people sabotage themselves from getting better. They're more comfortable with being sick. They're more comfortable with acting from the old version of themselves than making the changes that being healthy will bring. But in my experience, when people become healthy, it becomes the best feeling in the world. The only reason people stay sick is because they're getting more at the time. They're getting more out of being sick than they are getting out of being healthy, right? They're the weighing scales. They're actually getting more. There's a bigger investment in being sick than there is in being healthy. But once you switch that around, then people have a reason to get healthy. Once people can see like the benefits of being healthy and what it adds to their life, then they start to get more and more comfortable with the reality of actually getting better and staying healthy. You know, does that make sense? Yeah. So emotional reward is like, I would say the best way to explain that is eliciting sympathy. So people get energy from each other through that emotional reward that they get, which really brings now down into, I'm going to call it the darker one. So out of the 5, there's a more darker energy one. And the darker one, the darker energy one is people using illness and sickness to control each other. So control of others, that's number 4. Number 4 is using sickness to control other people. Not that anybody here would ever do that, right? But people do it. Oh my God, there is power in being sick, right? Now, there's also tremendous victimhood in being sick. Like anyone who is chronic illness, like will generally suffer from victimhood. Like when people are chronically ill for a long length of time, you know, naturally there's going to be a lot of victimhood, a loss of their power center, their solar plexus, their fire center. So it's very common for people who are chronically ill that they're, you know, I mean, the collective consciousness has victimhood, but when people are chronically ill, they're really tapped into that victimhood energy. At the same time as that, you know, sometimes when we're not in our power, when we're not really in our center. So like, again, if this is our center, if we're not in our power, if we're like really out of our power, then how we project that or how we portray that is will become really controlling. So if we're really out of our power, then we become really controlling, right? So we actually go to the opposite end of the spectrum. So just like the pendulum, when it's over here, it swings all the way over there, right? So when people are like, when they feel not in charge of their life, then they can sometimes like try to really take charge of other people's lives. And this is where you get like dependency and codependency, and all these patterns can start to unfold as well. But in terms of control of others, you know, people can use it in jobs, in relationships. They can use it even just in conversation. Like, people can get energy from each other in conversations, you know, and even to like an extreme case of, well, you can't say that to me, I have cancer, right? Like, if someone says they have cancer, they've just won any argument that you have with them. What are you going to say after that, right? I think you've lost the conversation. They 1-0, 1 point for them. You know, if you don't think that people use illness, you're crazy. People use illness. There's a power in being ill and sick, you know, and people argue with each other over who's the sickest. People argue with each other whose pain is the worst, who has the worst health, you know. Well, I've arthritis. Well, I've arthritis and migraines. Yeah, well, my arthritis is in my hips. Well, my arthritis is up my bum. You know, it's like people argue over how bad their stuff is. You know, I mean, it's kind of like, there's a nice shift though, because you also see people arguing about who are the healthiest. I'd rather see people arguing about who's healthier than people arguing over who's sicker, right? But in terms of like, people can use sickness in a controlling way, and that control can be like, where I've seen it a lot of times in healing is, I've seen people who've been sick, who are in a relationship, and they stay sick because they know that their partner won't leave them while they're sick in the relationship, because the partner feels responsible, because the partner is codependent. And so codependent people can't leave dependent people. They're in an unhealthy relationship, just like the dependent person depends on the person to look after them. The person who looks after them, it's really hard for a codependent person to leave a dependent person. So if the dependent person recovers from their illness and sickness, now the codependent person is able to leave them. Now, if you've been with that person for 20 years, or in some cases, some of my clients have been with people for, you know, 30 years. Like, imagine being in a relationship with someone for 30 years and that relationship is at an end. You know, I mean, all of the fears, fear of change, fear of finances, fear of that emotional like loss and contact, all of the stuff comes up. And so being able to keep yourself sick to keep someone in a relationship, people do it all of the time, you know. So now, like for me, if I'm working with someone, it's not just helping people get rid of their back pain. It's not just helping people get rid of arthritis or migraines or cancer or tumors or, you know, headaches. It's asthma, eczema. It's not just about getting rid of illness and sickness, but it's getting people to return back to their center. So people come back into a right relationship with themselves, that we don't need to use other people and situations and finance. We don't need to use all of these things and keep ourselves sick. We can return back to healthy relationship with the self. And when we're in a healthy relationship with the self, we can be in a happy, loving relationship with the self. You know, and then people reflect that when we're in a happy, loving, you know, relationship with the self, then we're not even trying to fix our relationships with other people. When we fix that relationship with the self, when we're not fearful of people leaving because we're enough within ourselves, then all of that dissipates, all of that falls away, and people start they start finding in bioenergy, we call it the solar plexus, is the power center, the fire center. So when we come back into our center, so here's our pendulum, right? When we come back into our center, then our energy starts to rise. Our energy starts to go up the chakras. It goes upwards through the body. And it brings us into a heightened state. And in that heightened state, is like people just step out of their fear. You know, clients all the time, they're like, you know, they're so fearful of actually getting better. You know, you think people are fearful of staying sick. People are more afraid of getting better than they are staying sick. If they've been sick for a few years, they know what to expect, right? So now you're like helping people get out of illness and get out of sickness. You're really helping people transform and change their lives and getting comfortable with a new way of living, a healthy way of living, a healthy way of being, and having to come into a right relationship with themselves and nature and each other, you know. So it's quite a lot for people to go through when people heal, you know. And so these are ways that people don't even realize that they're doing, but people will keep themselves sick as a way of being able to control the people around them. And people will keep themselves sick as a power sometimes over other people, you know. And you might say, well, nobody would do that to you, but you know, it happens all the time. Until someone does it to you, you don't know what it's like, you know. But people will use, like, people can use illness and sickness as a way of controlling their environment. They can control relationships, they can control a family, they can control how things happen in a job or in a work, you know. And so what we want to do is we want to interrupt all of that and then bring people back into their power center, because there's a real loss of power with this one. You know, it sounds like, you know, control of others, that they're in their power. Not at all. It's totally from a place of deficiency. And so as that deficiency and that excess, so there's deficiency, which is not being in the power, and then the excess is controlling others. And then the balance center is that you're actually in your power. And then when we're in our power, we're able to let go of the illness and the sickness. So healing, this is why, like, when you're healing the body holistically, you're not just treating the physical illness, but you're looking at it physically, emotionally, and mentally as to why is it there? And why is it not getting better? And if we don't address these things, then doesn't it make sense that that's why people stay sick? That's why people can go to the chiropractor, you know, every few weeks they go to the chiropractor, but they still have the back pain. You know, someone's getting massages all the time, but they still have their muscle problems. So they're not necessarily dealing with the energy point that is actually congested or blocked or not flowing. It's the energy point that needs to be corrected and come into balance, you know. So like another one, it's kind of like one I often share, like I'm often treating people who maybe they were in a job that they didn't want to be in. And so then they get sick and they leave the job. So they're out on sick leave. But now here's an interesting one. I'm working to get them better. So like, say someone has back pain, and the most successful thing I treat is back pain. So like when someone says they've got back pain and I'm going to treat them, I'm rubbing my hands together, because I expect them to get better. I literally expect them to get better. There's no reason why they won't get better. This is my specialty. This is what I'm good at. So now I'm treating someone with back pain, and we'll just say they're not getting better, right? What if they're not improving and they're not getting better, right? And then what am I doing? I'm trying to look at the holistic picture. I know that by treating them with the energy, they should be getting better. So why are they not getting better? And as I start to look at the bigger picture, you know, there's some simple questions that you can ask. What do you work at? Do you enjoy your work? And when someone says, you know, I work as a teacher, I don't like it, I don't want to go back, you know, and now I'm treating them and getting their back better. Well, what happens when their back gets better? They have to go back to the work that they don't want to go back to. Is this making sense to anyone? This is how powerful we are emotionally. If you're thinking, Michael's going to get my back better, therefore I have to go back to teaching and I don't want to teach, wouldn't it make sense that you're going to keep your back pain? You know, it brings up the question, why are you coming for treatment you know, if you really want to stay sick. And it's because you don't know that you want to stay sick. You actually think that you want to get better. Boom. Right? You think you want to get better. I mean, you're paying for treatment. You're coming for treatment. Of course you want to get better. You've hurt your back. You're out of work. Of course you want to get better. You don't want to go back, you know, yeah, you're not wanting to go back to the job, but you're willing to go back to the job because once your back gets better, you're willing to go back to the job. And in the future, you're going to change jobs, right? Or are you, right? So if you're saying, I don't want to go back to the work, that's what your body is listening to. Your body is always listening for instructions. And so you may know that if you go back to work, you're not going to change jobs. Why? Because now there's the financial reward and you'd have to change jobs and get a new job. And, you know, there's all the energy that comes with that. It's easier to just go back and keep doing what you already knew. But your body won't let you. Because your body is like, this is your only way out. You know, when you leave the job, then we'll let your back gets better. But then what, people don't have to leave a job if they're out on sick leave, because now you're actually getting paid to be out of the job. Right? Think about it. You're getting paid to be out of the job on sick leave. And if you get better, you stop getting paid for sick leave. And you have to go back to the job that you don't want to go back to, right? It sounds so obvious, right? As the healer, it's so obvious, but to the person, they can't see it. Like, you know, well, you know, I don't want to go back to the job, but of course I will. But that's not the point. The point is not that you'll go back to it. The point is that deep down inside of you, you really cringe at going back to it and you don't want to go. Yeah, Alice says sick leave is only for a limited time, so best to get well. Absolutely, right? Like it's only for a limited time, but it's amazing how, you know, a year can turn into 10 years for people. You know, it's amazing how sick leave can turn into disability, you know, and that years and years can go by, and then now you're coming to, like, again, that window where somebody comes for treatment a few months after they're sick, or someone comes for treatment many years after they're sick, which is the window where there's more likely to be transformation, right? So that's why I think that when healing happens, I always suggest to people that when healing happens fast. When we let go of stuff, when we make changes in our life, don't we do it fast? Like when we make changes, we make them fast, right? It takes time to get ready to make the change, but as soon as we're made a decision, change happens really fast. You know, you never hear of someone leaving a job for like 10 years, right? That person will never leave. They'll still be there. But when someone actually says I'm leaving, they're usually gone pretty quick, right? So healing is kind of like that. We have to purge and release that energy that we're getting from being sick. We have to let go of the advantage that we're getting from being sick, right? And as we let go of that advantage, and so what's the disadvantage? The disadvantage is maybe I need to leave this job that I really don't want to go back to. Yeah, but what about finances? You know, money will come and money will go. You know, it's only when people are sick that they say, you know, your health is your wealth, right? When people are healthy, they never think about your health is your wealth. But when people are sick, then you realize how valuable being healthy is, right? You know, so it's kind of like the principle of energy healing and bioenergy healing is like bringing people back to their center. And if people could find it by themselves, they would. But people can't find it by themselves because they can't even see it. People can't even see that they're out of alignment, right? I mean, they'll say it and they'll speak to it and they know of it, but they don't know it. They know of it, but they don't know it, right? It's not, when we know something, it's integrated, it's in the body, we get it, we understand it. You know, when we know of it, we can say the things, but not integrate it, not understand that it actually applies to us, you know. So now coming into the number 5 on the unconscious programs that keep people sick. Number 5 is, and this is an interesting one, the lesser of two evils. The lesser of two evils. The lesser of two evils. And this is another one that I came across that was really by chance. It was like, you know, I was like deeply trying to help this person get better, a woman with migraines. And I have, like, between back pain and migraines, you know, anxiety, these are things that I treat all the time. But like, I have tremendous success treating people with migraines. And so as I'm treating this person with migraines and she's not getting better, and we do a couple of extra sessions and she's still not getting better. And I kind of, it's very rare that I have to do this, but like normally we just do 5 sessions, but I think we've done at least 7 or 8 sessions. And I said to her, look, I think we should stop treatment. I don't feel it's working. And, you know, I don't like to keep treating people if it's not working, right? Like, you can really see quickly if something is working or if it's not, right? So I feel like, okay, I've done 7, 8 sessions. I've really given it a good, I did my best. I really tried my best. Didn't see the results with the migraines. So I'm like, you know, I think we should stop treatment. And then she says something at the end, and it was just a statement that she said, but I caught it. And what she said was, well, that's okay. At least it's not something worse. And I clued in. I was like, there's something there, right there, what you said. So I actually invited her to come back for another session. I said, now I really want to do one more session. Just after saying to her, like, we need to stop treatment, I'm like, I need you to come back for one more session. So she comes back and I start to unravel that with her. And it turned out that in the family, they had all had heart disease. All the women in the family had heart disease. And so when she said, that moment when she said, at least I don't have something worse, in her subconscious mind, so she wasn't aware of it, but in her subconscious mind, she felt it was much better to have migraines than have heart disease, because her grandmother had died from it, her mother had died from it, and one of her sisters had died from it. So this degenerative heart disease. And so she had herself and another sister, and it turned out that even the other sister said to her, like, when the migraines weren't getting better, she said, well, look, at least you don't have the heart disease. And that was locked inside her body energetically, that as long as she has migraines, she doesn't have heart disease. The lesser of two evils. And then as we did the healing, we opened up the healing, you know, and understanding that, we're able to let go of the fear around that. And by letting it go, it's like, it's bringing into the energetic space, what if you don't need to have heart disease? And what if you don't need to have migraines? What if you don't need to have either? What if you can actually be healthy? And what if we can give the conscious mind and the unconscious mind a new program, one in which you can be healthy and you don't need to have migraines in order to not have, you know, heart disease or a degenerative sickness, right? And so it's so subtle, right? Like, illness is crafty, right? It's crafty and it's subtle. And this lesser of two evils, when you think about it, like, you know, people do that. like when I first came across that, it totally took me by surprise, the lesser of two evils. Now that woman made a full recovery with her migraines, and but I've seen people do the same with cancer, right? Like people who have a real fear of cancer, holding on to like less, like something like arthritis, holding on to arthritis because they're like, as long as I have arthritis, well, at least I don't have cancer, right? So it's like we've been so conditioned and programmed into illness and sickness that people are almost expecting illness and sickness. If I don't have this one, I'm going to have another one. We need to like literally re-educate ourselves that the nature of the human body is to be healthy and well, right? When we live from the earth, when we eat healthy, the nature of the body is to be healthy and well. The human being is healthy by nature. When we're sick, we're coming out of alignment, we're coming out of our balance, we're coming out of our center. And healing, well, what's healing? All healing is helping people return back to their center, coming back into their center, finding their center. It's not even teaching anybody anything. It's just taking the conditioning and the programming and all that bullshit that we filled ourselves up with. It's taking it all out of the way. Like everything from all the processed food we're eating to eating naturally, all the ways that we're living that are living in more like living out of harmony with nature. It's moving those away. I was just sharing with our group this morning, like putting your bare feet on the ground. It's the most simplest thing that you can do. Your bare feet on the grass or on the sand in the ocean. It's like we've lost contact with the earth, and there's these simple things that we can do to bring ourselves back to health and well-being. So that sums up our 5 unconscious programs that keep people sick. Maybe they don't specifically apply to you, or maybe there's some insight into one of them for you, or maybe more than one. But I think as you as you get an understanding of like, oh yeah, these are things that people do that can keep them sick, or these are things that we can do, to keep ourselves sick, then we can be willing to let them go. And when we realize that the investment in health is so much greater than the investment in sickness. Like when you start feeling healthy and well, energy, vitality, waking up, feeling on purpose, feeling alive, and not because of like how wonderful your life is going, but like I always say, like healing, like true well-being is like you're happy just for being alive, not because of what's happening in your life. Look, everybody's life is I think that I might be wrong, but I think everybody's life is a circus, especially in the world right now. The world is absolutely a circus, right? And within that circus, there's a lot of chaos, and we can really get caught up in all the chaos, and we can have lots of reasons not to get out of bed. And at the same time, that life is beautiful and magical, and peace is right here, right now, inside of us, where it always is, where it resides. Peace doesn't reside in an ashram in India. Peace resides inside of you. When we're able to find stillness, when we're able to stop all of the running and doing and achieving and accomplishing, and we slow down. What are we slowing down and finding? We're finding what is already here, what already resides within. Peace. We're returning back to the truest version of ourselves. Peace, love, joy, right? So over here on the chat, I am posting my Linktree contact. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can go to the description, and you'll see links to the courses I offer, to my Linktree. On the Linktree, there's bioenergy sessions. I do sessions in person in Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. And I also do sessions in online through Zoom. And so through my link tree, you can find in-person sessions or online sessions. I also have level 1 training, which is teaching people to do bioenergy for themselves and family and friends and working on their pets. The next level 1 in-person coming up is on, let me think when it is, 14th and 15th of October. So if you fancy a visit to Vancouver, it's a beautiful place to visit. Come and stay for the weekend, do a level 1 bioenergy training. It'll be in Kitsilano. And then our next, we have a level 2 on at the moment, but our next level 2 after that will be next January 2024. So something to think about. If energy work is calling you and you feel, you know, this kind of thing resonates for you, I would certainly say, you know, check out our courses. Coming up in Vancouver on June 26th from 7 to 9:30, I have a beautiful healing evening, and the healing evening is a 2.5 hour session where it's a combination of bioenergy, but it's a little bit more focused on breath work for the healing evening. So there's a group of people will come together, about 8 people, and we do a beautiful healing evening where you start to transform and heal from the inside out. And so if you're able to make that one, that's the 26th of June and in Vancouver. And then otherwise, thank you for tuning in today. I won't have a webinar on next Wednesday on the solstice, but please come back, join us for the one after. I'm going to stop recording. You can feel free to stay on with me and ask any questions that you might have. To those who are on YouTube, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and please leave some comments. Always appreciated.